So Chris says you're advanced. So do you know?
He was just impressed a little bit.
He was impressed.
A little bit, not
Well,
that
you don't
much.
think you're advanced? So, okay. Do you know anything about the star scenario? Star.
Yeah, and I was about to ask you about star.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do all day today.
That was my thing.
That's literally what we're doing all day.
What
on this thing.
situations?
Yep. What is it? Situation? What's the T?
Is it not time?
Task? Not that important to remember what these are, just the concept in general. A is action. And then R could be two things, yeah. Results, response, resolution, same thing. So basically in an interview for a job that requires experience, industry experience, they're going to be asking you star-based questions. So what they're going to do is they're going to paint a situation for you. And that's why I have you do the monitoring report, because it's, I mean, how many items are on this report? Like 80 or something? How many is it? Not that many, like 60 something. 54.
How many did you count?
No, but they're numbered. I just look at what the last one is. There's like 54 on this report. That's 54 situations that they can ask you. Just each one of these could be a situation. Every site's different. Tomorrow when you monitor with me, you'll see. There's a different report we use. Every CRO or sponsor has a slightly different template. But the concept is the same. Right? Most important concept is PI oversight. Another important concept is patient safety. Like those are the two most important. Everything really revolves around PI oversight and patient safety. So, like, let's go through this report. And I'm going to ask you these more. Usually I'll like introduce these topics, but you know the material pretty well. So I'm just going to ask you the questions right away. Like, what would you do? Like number one, for example, right? We just talked about PI oversight, okay? What do you do if you go to a site for a monitoring visit and you suspect or you see that the PI does not have adequate oversight of the study? What would you do as a monitor?
So as a monitor, I have to, first I'll report it to my team lead.
But before you do that, what would you do like on site? Because you will do that, but there's ways to fix that before you escalate it. So PI oversight. The most important thing.
I'll check I'll go through the agreement 1572.
You remind them of their responsibilities, right?
Right.
So what I just asked is the S, okay? Like what do you do if you go to a site and you realize the PI doesn't have oversight? Just like number one, right? Doesn't continue to fulfill obligations. Maybe she's not signing documents, not signing lab results.
She doesn't, yeah.
Not there to see you.
She's not, I mean, most of the time she's not there, and then I can trying to make another appointment and so
That's right.
not be available.
That's right. But what else? What will be your immediate task? Let's say you notice this. What would be your immediate task?
So I will have to have a meeting with him.
There you go.
And
communicate with the PI somehow.
Right.
If they're not there, try to call them. Get the coordinator to give you a phone number. Get the coordinator to call them from the site while you're there. If it's something that's that urgent, before you take it up to your team lead, which you're still going to document it in the report, but if you make contact with them, you could at least document that you communicated with them, right? So you want to try to resolve it. And then, so that's like the action also. Your task is to communicate. Your action is you told the coordinator to call him, told CRC to call while you're there and have a conference call. It's an urgent thing, so you can't wait till next week. Okay, and then what's the result? The result is maybe you got a hold of the PI.
We discussed.
You discussed, right?
He said he will perform well, so we'll wait, and then I'll document, and then I'll wait till next time when if he perform as he should.
So you document that you went over their investigative responsibilities with them.
Right.
You reminded them that, in the future they need to start maintaining adequate oversight, and if it's something that they don't think they can maintain, to let you know, so that the sponsor can make a replacement PI or just close the site. So you want to ask the site, is this what you want to do, or do you think you can fulfill your obligations?
Okay.
Okay, but you're documenting all that in your report, but you don't need to call your team lead.
Before that.
You don't need to, because it's going to be in your report. They're going to read it.
Okay.
But if the PI says, no, I don't think I can do this, research is not what I thought it would be, then you should document it, but call your team lead right away.
Okay.
Right, so you gotta, and they're gonna ask you these things. They want to see your thought process. And if you claim that you've done this stuff in the past, there's not cases where it's this extreme, but monitors constantly remind PIs of their responsibilities. So they're trying to see, in an extreme case, what you would do.
Okay.
Okay, but they can ask you the same thing about all 54 of these. So number 2, does the site personnel have adequate time to fulfill their obligations? So who are they talking about there?
I think everybody.
Yeah. But most importantly, who? There's 2 people that are most important.
The PI and the coordinator, site coordinator.
That's right. So what do you do? This is another situation.
Okay.
What do you do if you go to the site and you realize that the coordinator doesn't have enough time to meet with you, doesn't have enough time to dedicate to the study, so you're noticing a lot of unresolved queries, a lot of errors, and in your opinion it's due to a lack of time? So what would you do as a CRA in that situation?
I will notify the PI.
Okay, good. So you're starting to see a theme, right? Whenever you're in doubt, just say, I'm going to communicate with the PI. First, to almost any of these questions.
Right.
You can say that, and you're not wrong. So good, go ahead. And what else? So you communicate with PI.
Right, and explain to him my concern. And then I'll sit down with the site coordinator and talk to her. Our priority is the safety of the our priority is our subject.
Yeah.
And so we have to be proactive and then make sure we follow all the regulations, the GCP. And if there's anything, like if she thinks she cannot do anything, she needs to communicate it so that we can move forward. And then I'll document everything.
Yep.
And then waiting to hear from her or see her next time when I go there.
Yeah. And what are some possible, even though it's the PI's job to fix this issue, but what are some possible strategies or some suggestions you can give the site to make this better for the...
I will talk to the PI maybe to train the site coordinator again. Maybe she need more training or more classes so that she can...
Yeah. Or maybe you got to have the conversation with the PI that the coordinator needs some help. That maybe they need to utilize one of their research assistants more. Maybe make the research assistant a backup coordinator.
Okay, so she need help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because usually in these cases, it's coordinator is burnt out, and it's not that they don't know what they're doing and they're dumb. they just have like a dozen studies, and yours may not be getting the attention it needs because they're busy with the other ones, right? So if you notice there's a lot of staff there, but they're not on the delegation log, you can make some suggestions, like, and it's not your site, so you can't tell the PI what to do, but you can make suggestions. And then of course you document any suggestions. And maybe the PI is not aware that the coordinator's burnt out. Or maybe the PI maybe the coordinator tells the PI that they're overworked, but the PI doesn't believe them. You know, they just think it's an employee that's lazy. So if they hear it from you, it's important because they'll believe you, they'll trust you. You have no interest in whether the coordinator gets help or not. It's just you're just pointing out the facts, right? So communication is important because oftentimes the PI won't know these things. Or maybe they do, but they're not aware that they can put other people on to help the coordinator. So you're right, but you should add more. So more details better. Because it shows that you understand it better. What about delegation of duties log? What do you know about that?
Delegation of the duty log. When you do the data source amplifications, you have to pull the delegation log so that you can compare the signature for the people who are assigned for that particular assignment.
But what's the purpose of the delegation log, and then who needs to be on it?
Anybody who has a duty at the site, like the PIs, the site coordinator, the people who do IP, and then lab.
Everybody.
Everybody, yeah.
Anyone who's involved in the study.
Yeah.
So there's another scenario that they'll ask you in an interview. I mean, again, they can ask, this is why I always tell people, like, never lie on your resume, because there's thousands of questions they can ask you. It's always better to be truthful. It's the difference between embellishing and lying.
Right.
Like if you only have 2 years of real experience, but you have like 5 years as a coordinator, you can maybe say you have more than 2 years as a CRA. I mean, that's embellishing, alright? Lying is making things up. Like just, you have no oncology experience ever, but you say you do. That's a whole, by the way, oncology, like, they can ask you specific names of drugs. They can ask you, like, anything, right? Like, little details, they know that you're not telling the truth. So, delegation log, another scenario question could be, what do you do if you go on site and you notice that there's someone doing assessments, but they're not on the delegation log? What do you do as a CRA?
As a CRA, my job, I will talk to the PI.
Yeah, there you go.
And tell them what's going on. And then also that's a deviation. So I need to remind the PI about the protocol, what is in protocol. So they have to follow the procedure.
Yes.
And then I will talk to the person who did that and make sure I train them. And then they documented what happened. Like I talked to them and things like that.
So if someone's not on the delegation log, but they're doing a lot of assessments, it could be a deviation. You're right, but you got to figure out, does the PI not want them to be on the study? In which case it's definitely a deviation. Or did they just forget to put them on there? So you got to look now at the training log. Are they on the training log?
Okay.
Are they on the 1572? If they're not on any of those things and not on the delegation log, you got to figure out first, does this person belong on the study or not?
Okay.
If they don't belong on the study, definitely a deviation. If they do,
maybe they forgot to put their qualification.
they probably just forgot to fill out the delegation form. It's still technically a deviation, but you can put a note to file. The site can do a note to file. Do you know what a note to file is? Note to file is anytime the source document or the site needs to explain context of a situation, they just write a note to file. It's just a letterhead with the site information and then an explanation of,
What
you know,
happened?
yeah, Dan Sfera was not listed on the delegation log inadvertently. He has been trained by PI on this date, and then you would look at the training log and see, is it true? Did he really get trained? If not, you got to remind the PI to train the staff.
So that's considered as a deviation too?
It could be a deviation. It depends on the sponsor. So when you're in doubt, you should ask your lead CRA if it's a deviation. If I did an assessment and I'm not on the delegation log, and you brought it up to my PI, and the PI says, oh yeah, he's not supposed to be on the study,
Okay.
that's a deviation. If the PI says, oh yeah, he is, shouldn't he be on the delegation log? And you say, no, he's not on there. That's just inadvertently they didn't put me on. So now you gotta look at the training log to see if I've been trained. Then you gotta look at my GCP. Am I up to date?
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that triggers a new staff member. Same thing, same question, number 3 for delegation. What do you do when there's a new sub-investigator added to the site? What do you do at your next monitoring visit?
Okay, I have to make sure they train him.
Yep, so name the things you gotta look for when there's a new sub-I.
Okay, if they train him, and then there is certifications and the CV.
Okay, so training, protocol training.
Right.
Okay, CV.
Mhm.
Okay, you said certification, so like GCP.
Right.
Okay, protocol training. Okay, what else? Certifications could be like licenses.
Licensing,
Okay.
right.
There's 2 more forms. We just talked about one. New sub-I. So you gotta make sure they have the training. No, nothing to do with informed consent. Regulatory documents.
Oh, like if his name is.
There you go. Delegation law. Yeah,
Delegation
we'll
law.
just talk about that. Okay, and then there's actually 2 more. Delegation log. There's 2 more forms, both regulatory.
Delegation log and.
Yeah. 2 more. One is very important, maybe the most important in all of research. The most important regulatory form in all of research. They go in box 6. I think it's box 6. You gotta know. It's the numbers. It's 4 numbers.
Oh, 1572.
There you go. They have to be on them.
That's why I was like informed consent.
Nothing to do with informed consent.
Yeah,
They're
that's the
allowed to
first
do,
one.
maybe if they're delegated to do informed consent.
No, they're not for informed
No,
consent.
but they can. They can be. Like, if they're on the delegation log to do physical,
Right.
informed consent,
Yeah,
then
they
they're
can do
allowed to do
anything.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1572 is must.
Okay, and then one more. Remember, this is a new sub-I. One more regulatory form they have to have. All sub-Is have to sign this.
Delegation log and.
This one gets filed with the sponsor. They get it on Instagram.
Who?
They got it right. People are watching.
Ah,
They got it right.
that's good.
And they just one more.
Trying to remember.
So you got a new sub-I,
Mhm.
you got a protocol training log, you got CVs, GCP's licenses, delegation log, 1572, one more form. You'll remember it when I say it.
And that's sad.
That's sad. It's better, I'm telling you now, than in an interview.
No, see, I'm writing here, so.
Yeah, and you'll have it recorded.
I can't remember.
Financial disclosure form.
Disclosure.
Yeah. See, you knew, I told you
That
you're gonna
and
know as soon as they say it.
1572, those are the main.
FDF, yeah. That's the FDF is to notify the sponsor if they own financial interest.
Financials.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a star scenario that you would have done okay on. Maybe, they wouldn't have waited that long for you to answer these two, but maybe they would have thought you're nervous, maybe. At best.
They will not want me.
At best. So you can write that down.
Okay.
There's more, like, depending on some studies, there's more trainings. Like, for a lot of psychiatric trials, there's psychiatric training, like, for different scales.
Mm-hmm.
Like CSSRS, PANS, the stuff you looked at with Chris yesterday
Right.
and even today. PANS,
Okay.
CGI, depending on what they're delegated to do,
Okay.
usually they have to be trained on certain assessments also. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I like this first section because it pretty much gives you a lot of possible scenarios. So that's delegation log. So we talk about new staff, missing staff. Let's see. Well, I'll save that one for later. I have a good question, but I'll save it for later. Okay. What do you do if a site moves to a new location as a CRA?
I mean, the site was.
Can they just move whenever they want, or
I
what
think
do they have to do?
They have to notify the. They have to notify, I think, the team lead, and then they will send me the information.
Yeah, they gotta notify the sponsor first
Right. Okay.
as to why and where and when. Okay. The sponsor can approve or reject it.
Mm-hmm. Sponsor.
Sponsor rejects it, they'll just do a closeout visit.
I see.
Yeah, they could reject it. Like if it's usually they'll accommodate, but sometimes they can reject a move, especially if the site's not enrolling or they have a lot of issues. The sponsor would rather just close them out.
Okay.
So you gotta get sponsor approval first. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the sponsor says yes, which most of the time they will. What does the site have to do that you have to make sure that they're doing?
The site, they have to notify the team lead, and then team lead will notify me, and then I have to go there to
Yeah. But
make sure.
what does the site need to do though? Like,
Send me a letter to notify
No.
the new address.
no, more tactical. The site has to change all the what?
The passwords?
No.
Regulations?
Regulatory.
Really? The
Yeah.
password by
All of them.
to
Yeah.
use, like
They have to change all the regulatory
the address?
docs. Yeah. If a site has an address change, that triggers changes in what forms? Right? Like what are some of the most important forms that will trigger?
All the forms.
Yeah. All the ones you just mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
1572.
1572.
That needs to be changed.
Right.
FDF.
FDF, and then what's the other one?
There's one we didn't mention that will apply here.
What, informed consent?
Yeah.
Will change.
That will change. And who approves the informed consent?
The IRMB.
So how does the IRB know the site's moving?
FDA
Yeah, but how does the IRB know the site's moving?
sponsor will notify.
No. Site has to.
Site
Site has to send them a IRB change of address form.
And that's the SOP something. Maybe
Not SOP, but you need to do an IRB change of address form.
Never heard this question before.
I know. That's why I'm asking it. Change of address. So when a site is activated to start a study, they need all these forms, right? But they also need to fill out an IRB questionnaire. It's called an initial IRB site approval. Every IRB has their own website where you can download these forms. You can even go get them yourself.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, IRB, so when a site's started, they gotta get an IRB, they're all called something else, but basically it's a form you fill out with the IRB. The IRB asks a bunch of questions about the site, and then they approve that site to start doing the study. Now when the site changes an address, they gotta let the IRB know as well. And it's a change of address form. It's just a formality. The IRB will never not allow it.
I've never experienced this.
Always great to make a checklist when checking for new sub-Is or keep track of expired docs. Yeah, so when you're monitoring, you should keep like a tracker. And I interviewed this guy on YouTube. His name is the CRA Coach. He's really good at checkout. So he CRAs every day. So he has all these forms, Excel sheets. So for every site, he keeps track of all the sub-Is. And he knows when their GCP is expiring, when their license is expiring. He knows everything, like all the dates, who's on, who's not. So rather than looking through all these things every time you go, you just see your form. And then you know who's missing or whose license expired, who's been added to the 1572 and doesn't have training.
Oh wow.
Right? But let's go back to the site moving, okay? So 1572 FDF and then the IRB change of address form. Of course, a new consent form, right? That's good enough. If they ask you that in an interview, that's good enough. They gotta, of course, change their CVs too. And then the CLIA waiver. What do you know about CLIA?
What is
CLIA. Certified Lab. Every site needs either a CLIA or a CLIA waiver. So when a site moves, they gotta change their CLIA certificate. It basically registers the site with the state that they're drawing blood and processing blood. It's either a certificate or a waiver, but the site needs one or the other.
Okay.
So when they move, we just moved here 2 months ago, so it's still a mess a little bit. We had to get a new CLIA waiver when we moved.
Okay.
And our monitors asked us to do all these things. They made sure we were doing all these things. We knew to do them already, but the monitors made sure, like every day they were asking this stuff. So when you move, the monitors are on top
So
of
do
it.
you have to, like when you move, like within what, 30 days or 60 days you have to change everything?
As soon as you move, you have to change it.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also, this is just regulatory. Now if a site moves in the middle of a study, what else do they have that's important that they need to transport?
The IP.
Yep. So we got reg. You know what reg means, right? Like when they say reg?
Yeah.
Like reg docs?
Whatever.
Yeah, that's just short for regulatory documents. IP, investigational product.
Product.
So that, how does the site handle the IP, transporting the IP?
They have to make sure the car or whatever they're putting the IP there is the temperature will be okay for the medications. Yeah.
And what do you do as a CRA? You make sure you ask them what's their SOP. for transporting IP.
Right, the temperature log.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure they follow that.
Yeah, well, you gotta ask them what is their SOP.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
send you a copy.
For the, okay, IP SOP.
Yeah, standard operating procedure
Mm-hmm.
for that task
I
of
didn't know
transporting.
they had
I know. They can ask you any of these. By the way, they can ask you 1,000 other ones too.
SOPs for the
SOP?
IP?
Yeah, there's SOP for everything. We have a SOP for transporting lab kits. We just wrote one today. We needed a monitor asked for it. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
We need a SOP for everything, but especially for IP transportation. And not even when you move, just when you're, let's say you have a inpatient study and you have an outpatient facility, you know, and all the drug is kept at the outpatient clinic, but you need to dose the patient in the hospital. You've got to, someone has to transport that. We have a new study starting next month where this is
It's gonna happen.
exactly going to be what's happening. Newport Bay, a few blocks from here, and San Bernardino clinic, which is all the way.
Right there. Right
Yeah.
there.
So they got to transport the IP every time a patient doses. Right? So what's the SOP for that? Maybe they don't have a SOP. That's a problem. Right? Because that means they can just do whatever they want.
Okay. Site move,
And if the
that's
sponsor's not going to like that. But when the site moves, they'll do that too.
okay.
Subject source. Yeah, that too. So, just like the IP, what else? When the site moves? Someone on Instagram had it right. This, if it's an ongoing study and the site's moving. IP, reg docs, sponsor, what else needs to be transported?
All the binders.
Yeah, source docs, good. Subject source. So, just like IP, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your SOP for transporting source docs? I don't know. It's not your site, you don't know. Maybe they don't have one. If they're a new site, they don't know.
Do you have one?
Yeah, we were told to have one. Oh, alright, we can show you our SOP, it's huge. It's like 50 sections. It's for
This
every.
itself is.
It's
two
not
of
this
them.
big. It's not this big. Our SOP is only like 60 pages
For
that whole SOPs, like for everything.
for everything.
But it's growing because each time a monitor asks us about something, we have to add a new section. But yeah, transporting source. By the way, it's the same process as transporting IP, except you don't need to worry about temperature.
Okay, so you just remove one paper or two papers. But
Yeah, but you need a separate log.
Right.
Because with IP, you care about time it left,
And
The clinic?
The,
time it came in,
and the temperature.
the date, obviously, for both, and the temperature. Yep. And for the source, and then who did it, right? Who?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Someone has to sign or initial. And for the source, it's the same thing, except you don't need to worry about temperature. And same for the lab kits. Okay, you gotta transport the lab kits to the new clinic too.
If you have them.
Yeah, probably you already have them if you have source and IP, you're gonna have lab kits. Yep, that's, could be a possible interview question. What do you do when a site moves? And sites move a lot now. They move either to expand, or they move because the PI moved his office, and so the site's following them.
Okay.
Right? A lot, right? You didn't think it was all this.
See, that's why I was telling you.
The stuff you went with Chris yesterday was more about the source,
Mm-hmm.
but this is more about like the macro concepts.
The whole thing.
But you need both.
What did I tell you?
You need both, macro and micro.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you know what to do when a site moves. See, that's question. I think that's question. I don't know. I think I just made that one up.
Yeah, that one you made up.
It's number 6, but I went off on a tangent. Number 11. So this is where we get into. Oh, number 10. Inclusion-exclusion criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say a patient was randomized that wasn't supposed to be randomized. But it's too late now. They're already randomized.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they met one of the exclusion criterias, or they didn't meet one of the inclusion criterias. But it's too late. The site already dosed them. They already had a few visits, and now it's your monitoring visit. And you discover this right now. What do you do?
I'll talk to the PI.
Yeah,
And then
see?
I'll talk to the
You can't go wrong with talking to PI.
medical
Yeah.
monitoring
Medical monitor. Yep.
and
Medical monitor.
and then they can make a decision because I cannot make a
Yes.
decision.
There you go. They cannot. So, what you're looking for is to see whether you can get a waiver,
Right.
protocol waiver. Okay. Now, sometimes they're very strict and they don't allow any waivers whatsoever.
Mhm.
It's actually increasingly common now. Okay, they don't allow any waivers. Now, what do you do if they don't allow waiver? I mean, the medical monitor will tell you what to do, but
Right.
what should be done? What do you think will be done?
I think they need to terminate the subject.
Yep. So what visit will they come for? The subject will need to come for.
The subject will come back and bring the medications.
That's right.
Yeah.
But what's that visit called when the subject comes back?
I just read the other day.
You said the word. Terminate.
Yeah.
Early.
Early termination.
Early termination.
Yeah.
Early termination, or sometimes it's called safety. I've heard like safety term, safety follow-up. Early term is the most common. Early termination visit.
Our visit.
Yeah, as soon as possible. Okay, like ASAP.
Okay.
But what does the site need to do that day if the medical monitor says nope?
They just need to call the subject and tell
Yeah.
the subject not to take the medication.
Yep, call subject, tell them to stop taking meds and to return the
Mm-hmm.
unused IP at their early termination visit,
Mm-hmm.
which could be ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
Could be that day if
The
they
next-
want to come,
Yeah.
or the next day, If the subject doesn't come, what is the site supposed to do? The subject still has the IP. What does the site need to do if the subject's not coming in for their early term?
Okay.
Let's say the subject's lost a follow-up now. What does the site need to do?
The site just need to close the
They'll mark them as discontinued in the IWRS. Okay, so the IWRS, where you assign drug to the patients,
Mhm.
they can mark them as discontinued. But how does the site try to get the IP back?
Okay. They cannot go to the house.
So what? Why?
Can you go to the
Again, it's part of the SOP. Yeah, if it's their patient, if it's the PI's patient, it's not common practice to go to house, but what if it is in their SOP? But there's an industry standard procedure that everyone does pretty much the same thing.
Never heard.
It's 3 phone calls
Okay.
Document it.
Alright.
You can't just say you called. It has to be written down. Date, time, who talked, what did you do? Did a human being answer, or was it a machine? And if so, what did they say? Or if not, what did you say? Document 3 of those. And Monica just did this today.
Oh, really?
Send a certified letter. Okay. And you want proof that someone signed for it. Okay. So what if they don't? They can refuse, yeah.
If they cannot read?
Well, you did what you can as a site.
Okay.
That's the FDA would say that's acceptable.
Okay.
But you can go to their house. I've done it. I've gone to a patient's house. I know.
No, especially this psychiatry one, no.
I've done it. If it's between that or dealing with an angry sponsor, I'll deal with the angry patient. I've done it. I've gone to, and they do it. They're like, hey, I'm sorry, just forget. Here it is.
He's one of those good ones.
They know you already. It's not like I'm a stranger. Like, they know you. If they don't know you, you can't send like someone they don't know. But if they know you, like this is someone I've seen every week, I draw their blood. Like they know me.
Okay.
Right? You have to use your judgment.
Right.
But as a CRA, you can't tell them to do that. Because then you could get in trouble.
Alright.
Like you can't tell the site, you have to go to their house.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they do and somebody gets hurt,
You will be in trouble.
yeah. You have to say you need to follow your SOPs or whatever the PI suggests is what you need to do.
So what is the
But here's what I suggest. You at least call and document and send a certified letter.
Okay, so the SOP says, most of the time the SOP said you should call 3 times.
Yeah.
And you can go and get them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if the SOP doesn't say that, they
Right.
need to include that. Because
Okay,
that's
just in
GCP.
case. Okay.
That's good clinical practice. Yeah. So be careful as a CRA, you shouldn't tell the site, you need to go to their house right now.
Right.
Because if something happens to that coordinator,
I'll be responsible.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can be, but if you're an employee, your employer will be in trouble. But if you're a contract CRA, you can get in trouble.
No, I will not. That's...
You gotta just use common sense. So, what do you do on average? An average study has about 3 protocol amendments. Okay, an average study. So, what can be some reasons for a protocol amendment? So we can talk an hour about those.
Right.
Protocol amendments happen in just about every study. I've only been on one study in my life where it never had an amendment. And the sponsor were bragging about it. When they would come visit me, they would brag that they never had an amendment. Once in my life I saw this. Usually it's 4 amendments, 3, 4, 5. I've seen like 6. Why would sponsor want to make amendments?
Maybe they want to change the dose of the medication, the IP.
Okay, so that could be one. So safety considerations.
Oh.
Basically safety or efficacy. Okay. That's really the only 2, I mean that's what studies are looking at. These 2 things, there's nothing else. Safety or efficacy. So it could be 1,000 reasons why for safety,
right,
and 1,000 for efficacy. So if they ask you this in an interview, you say there could be a number of reasons, but the 2 big ones are safety and efficacy. And everything else is a sub.
So if I say you don't want to change the dose for the IP, then it's like they're waiting to hear more and more.
Yeah, that's either a, well, if you say that, IP change of dose, that could be either one.
Right.
So they'll ask you why. Was it too low of a dose, no one was getting results, or were too many people getting side effects?
More side effects.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the two endpoints, safety or efficacy. So that's why protocols get amended.
Okay.
But what do you do when they get amended? As a CRA, you're gonna notice some themes, some common themes for all these things share common themes. So what happens when a protocol gets amended? We know why they get amended, but now what do you do?
We have to protocol amendment affect the ICF need to be changed.
Yeah, okay. Yep. So what does that mean? Let's say you get an amended version of a consent. What does the site need to do?
So we have to call the subject, contact the subject, they come, and then they sign again.
Mm-hmm.
We explain to them what happened, and then
Do they have to come in right away, or they can wait till their next visit?
then they can come to the next visit.
Okay, good. Yeah, there you go. That's right. That'd be a trick question in an interview, because I know the answer, but if someone's new, they may not know. They're gonna say they should come in right away. Right. They could wait till the next visit.
Because they can finish their medications.
That's right.
And then this is the new one.
It's not urgent.
Right, unless there's a very bad side effects.
Right. But if there's very bad side effects, the IRB would shut down the study, and the sponsor would too. Yeah, so it's not urgent, but they need to sign their, and that triggers another star. What do you do as a CRA if you noticed one patient forgot to sign the new informed consent, and they already had another visit? Is that deviation?
Informed consent is not a deviation.
Yeah, it is.
It is. I will talk to the PI.
Yeah, there you go. Can't go wrong with that. You cannot go wrong with that.
And start coordinator and then train them.
Yes.
And
so it is a deviation. Okay. Now deviations, do they all get reported to the sponsor? Every single deviation?
yes.
Yes. And what about the IRB? Every single deviation?
No, it's just a serious
Correct. Yeah, very good. Just the ones that affect patient safety.
Right.
Does a forgetting to sign an informed consent affect patient safety?
No.
It technically does. I agree with you. I don't think it does. But the IRBs say that it does. Because if it's you don't know unless you know what the change was in the informed consent. And if it's like a new discovered side effect, and the patient maybe is prone to that, it's the IRBs will say that is IRB reportable. Now, the sponsor I'm currently working for says it's not. So when you don't know, you need to ask your team lead. Okay. Like it happened to me a month ago. I went to my site, this exact issue. And I asked the sponsor, is this IRB reportable? And they didn't know. They got back to me 5 days later. They were talking amongst themselves. And they said, no, it's not. But most of the time it is. And I knew that, but I just wanted to see what they would say for this study. And it's up to them. It's their study.
Right.
It's the sponsor. They're the ones that answer to the FDA. Right? You're just documenting.
Like you ask them, and then they say it's okay.
Yeah, so you can't get in trouble, basically. Yeah. Okay, so protocol amendment triggers ICF amendment. Okay. What else does the site need to do that you need to make sure they do? So informed consent is a big one. Another one is that one. Another one is... There's really two more important ones.
Which one?
for when a protocol amendment happens, what the site needs to do. So informed consent, that's a big one, but there's another big one. Anytime there's a protocol amendment, it usually triggers an informed consent amendment,
Right.
but it always triggers a new site training for everyone.
Because it's a new either medication or.
Well, it's a change to the protocol. So you gotta document
Oh, okay.
all staff trained on the new version of the protocol.
Okay.
They're supposed to train themselves. Like the PI is supposed to train the staff, or someone at the staff is supposed to train everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't do that, whose job is it to train them? That would be...
IP. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they don't do that, and now it's the monitor goes to
Monitor,
the...
when you go there, then
Now
you
the monitor
first
can
thing.
train. Yeah, the monitor can train. So it's at your discretion, really. Usually you're not allowed to write, monitors are not allowed to write on regulatory documents, except for the site visit log when you sign that you show up, and this training log. You're allowed to train, as a monitor, you're allowed to train the site.
Okay.
Anytime you want. Okay? Now, ideally, you want the PI to train,
Right.
or somebody train. But if they're not doing that, then it's your responsibility to train them.
Okay.
Okay? And then there's one more thing that a protocol amendment triggers. It's another regulatory document. This one, the PI, only the PI needs to sign this one.
The deviation log?
Mm-mm. This one's a regulatory document that only the PI signs when a protocol's amended. It is the protocol amendment signature page. I don't know. It's detailed, but that's what separates the ones who get hired from those that don't. Protocol amendment signature page.
Never heard. It is the first time.
Well, isn't it good you come to the internship?
Yes.
There you go. So,
Yeah.
anytime a protocol is amended, even the initial protocol when the site...
Protocol amendment signature.
Yeah, but even the first protocol when the site gets the new study, and all the, what's called essential documents, you know what the essential documents are? It's all the reg docs, right? So, one of those is the protocol signature page that acknowledges the PI read it and received it. Yeah. They also have investigator brochure signature page.
Right, so.
Yeah.
Which one of them? There's one I want
The big section, yeah. The investigator brochures are huge.
And which
So that's essential document too. And guess what? As a CRA, you gotta collect all these things. Copies. You'll see tomorrow. I don't think I'm collecting any tomorrow because there hasn't been an amendment since my last visit. So I'm not collecting that, but I am collecting a bunch of other logs. You'll see tomorrow.
So, but some of the, like here, number, I put a question mark.
Which one? Investigator brochure? Just remember the two big documents in any regulatory binder is the protocol, it's like this thick, and the investigator brochure, it's even thicker, right?
Yeah, mhm.
But the most important pages is the signature page for each one. They come with a signature page.
That the protocol and.
And the IB. And only the PI signs that.
Okay.
Okay. And you gotta collect copies of that when you're
25, number 25.
25. Is there adequate adherence to the yeah, that's deviations.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, this is more of what trigger. Well, we kind of talked about deviate waivers. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember, protocol signature page, investigator brochure signature page. Anytime there's an amendment,
Where is it? So, like, is the brochure here?
there should be a signature page in there. Yeah, for both.
Okay.
Yeah. So anytime a protocol amendment triggers these three things. So now if they ask you to interview, you're gonna be an expert.
Oversight training.
Yeah, you're gonna be an expert. They're gonna want to make you the CEO of the company.
Yeah, right.
but seriously, you should say those things.
Sure.
If they ask you that. Now that we covered it so much, they probably won't ask you. They're gonna ask you something we didn't even discuss. But you gotta know concepts. It's more important to learn concepts than specifics. Like, people try to memorize. People that try to fake it, they just watch my videos and then they try to memorize as much as they can.
Okay.
And then it's all about the way they ask it. If you don't understand the concepts, that's it. You can't memorize this stuff.
Okay.
You can only repeat the modules. Like, you have access to those modules forever.
I think you need to practice too. And if you see, like, you can go to class, but you have to come and see it.
Yeah.
To remember.
That's what everyone says when they come here.
Yes, because
because you did good in the class.
Yeah, in the class you really.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come here, like, there's some other things, like today, I did not learn from the class. Like here.
Yeah. Well, you did, but it was
you cannot
so abstract.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Like here now, you come and be like, like today, I was trying to find the investigate products.
Oh, okay.
Because nowhere to be found. Guess what?
Oh, you're gonna see a lot tomorrow.
Informed consent.
Oh, informed consent. There you go. You're gonna see a lot tomorrow.
And then I learned yesterday, when I was now Monday, when he said, Joyce, take this, the protocol.
Yeah.
Go and read. That's when I was like, oh, so that's where you can find it.
Everything's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
So I went to this one here. That's where I found.
But now you know, without looking, protocol amendment. What does it trigger?
Yeah. ICF.
Yeah.
And then site training.
Yep.
And then protocol amendment signature.
Yep.
Signature
page. Yeah. Good. And that's important because amendments happen 4 times per study. 3 or 4 times per study. On average, I think it's 3. But that's going to increase because with risk-based monitoring, and with adaptive protocols, they're changing protocols faster now. So that number is going to go up.
Oh, okay.
So what's essential documents? When someone says you gotta go collect the essential documents.
Essential documents?
Yeah.
Those are like the important documents.
Yeah. But what are they referring to? It's a synonym for essential documents. It's a synonym for...
What, regulatory band?
Yeah. Regulatory, right. So, like the ones we mentioned. 1572.
1572, the site login, what you call that? The one you sign in when the monitor go.
Oh, what is that called now? I just said it.
Yeah, there's this change.
Site visit log?
Yeah, site.
But that's not an essential document.
Hmm?
No, yeah. Essential document are 1572, CVs, financial disclosure, IRB submission, IRB questionnaires, protocol amendment, protocol signature page.
But those are the ones in the regulatory band.
Yeah. But when someone says essential documents, that's what they're talking about.
Okay, so you cannot, just not the necessary ones.
Like the ones that the site can,
They have to have them.
they have to have everything in there,
Original.
but those are the ones that can change, that the sites can make new people sign. Like this can change,
Right.
the FDF can change, you can have new people on it. IRB submissions, protocol signature page, those are called essential documents. So that's, just don't get confused when you hear that in an interview.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah, essential documents. It's pretty much all the regulatory stuff we talk about.
okay.
Like all the ones we already talked about, those are what that means. I don't want you to hear that in an interview and get confused.
Okay, so regulatory findings.
Because in this industry there's like 1,000 ways to say the same thing.
Yes.
And that's what gets people confused.
But I will not stop learning.
Nope. You can't. I don't stop. I mean,
Regulatory findings.
I learn new stuff all the time.
72. So it's FDF, right?
Yeah, financial disclosure. The good old 1572. CVs. IRB submissions. Delegation log is an essential document.
Oh, because it can change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Anything that the site can ignore that could get them in trouble is basically an essential document.
Okay, so
It's an easy way to remember it.
Okay.
It's essential, they don't ignore it.
1572 CV.
Anything that requires the site to maintain.
Okay.
Training log, CV, GCP, medical license, those all expire, right? That's, if you leave it unattended for years, it could cause a lot of problems. That's what's an essential document. Basically, when you hear that, just think regulatory documents. That's it. Don't get confused in an interview when they ask you, because they will try to ask you in ways that will confuse you. If you don't have experience and you say you do, that's one way to see.
They can
Yeah.
get you there.
Like when, people are learning and one of the first things they learn is informed consent. So they know it, but then when the interviewer asks them, well, what do you do with ICFs? And they get nervous. But if you actually work in the industry, that's how you call those documents. But if you don't work, if you just know the concept,
You're good.
yeah. Or same thing with like protocol deviations. Like, you know that word, but then when they ask you at the interview, how do you handle PDs?
I think when they use an acronym, it's
They're trying to trick you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, acronym.
Because I won't, they can ask that on me, I know what they're talking about. But somebody else.
But it was kind of
Oh yeah,
quick.
yeah. And there's so many. In Intralinks we have a bunch. In the Intralinks it's, we have in the Academy, we have a document that's common acronyms. You have access to that for life. Where are we? So protocol, we went through that. Let's go through enrollment.
Yes.
Recruitment, enrollment. What do you do if you go to the site and they're not enrolling as many patients as they said they would?
You just, talk to the PI, talk to the PI and the staff and tell them that, like, if they don't have enough, if they don't enroll subject, the site will be closed. So you ask them if there's any problem to enroll the subjects, if they need help, and then you train them. I mean, you can sit down and train
If they
them.
don't enroll any subjects,
Mhm.
the site will be closed?
Yeah,
Or-
of course.
okay. Yeah, but what if they said they're gonna enroll for a month, and they're only doing one a month? Will they still be closed?
No, because at least they have,
Yeah.
because it takes some time
Good,
to...
good. But what do you do? What do you do to encourage more recruitment?
Wait, there is a... Wait, there's a called Boost.
There you go. Yeah. Booster visit.
Yes, Boost visit.
Chris told you that?
Who? Nah.
No. That's good.
No,
Shanae?
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Booster visit. You're right.
Your videos.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, you're right. Booster
your,
visit.
Your videos.
Booster visit. So
You say there's a five of them.
5 common type of visits. Yeah.
Right. So the last
Site
one
selection,
is.
SIV, interim, closeout, booster, and then a pre-audit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I
Yeah.
meant.
So booster visit's the least common,
Mhm.
and sometimes they don't even make you go. But if they send you out for one, or if you hear it in an interview, because in an interview I had as a CRA, they actually asked me about how do I encourage sites to recruit more.
Yeah, I was about to ask you. So like you can go to the doctor's visit,
Yeah.
doctor's
Talk to the PI.
PI, or go to the community
Yeah.
library and advertise.
Yeah, but not you. You as the CRA can't.
No, just them.
You have to give them
Tricks.
strategies.
Yes.
Or collaborate, talk to the PI. So the first thing is communicate with the PI.
Yeah.
Maybe they just don't have time, but they have the patients in their database, but they don't have time to recruit.
But
So now a solution is, who's this person here, your receptionist, can she call half an hour a day for these patients and see if they can pre-screen? That's a solution. Or maybe your coordinator can dedicate 30 minutes per day to doing this, right? So you're looking for solutions. If the PI is not aware that they're slow, because
how can the PI now be aware?
well, the PI could be seeing like 4 patients an hour for their private practice, so they're busy, and they just assume the research is busy too.
But if you're not going to the research clinic,
But how do they know? Because the coordinator is doing everything.
But so if you don't have any lab work to
Yeah.
review, you don't
Yeah.
have to no feedback from the site coordinator.
Maybe you're happy. You have less work.
Those are scenarios.
Yeah, all of them.
Okay.
Especially with universities.
Oh really?
It's happening with one of my sites right now in New York.
How many sites do you have, Chris? You guys, because every time, excuse me, every time when you guys talk, like yesterday, Chris, my side, I'm like, you guys, my side, you get my side. I'm like, what?
So my site could be used for sites I own, which are 6. My clients, which are like 30 something, or now my CRO sites, so sites that I monitor, like the one tomorrow. I call that my site, but I don't own it. But it's my site because when I'm saying that, I'm as a CRA at that point, right? But if I'm an owner, I still say my site. It's the same word. But one of my sites in New York, through my CRO, so I'm a monitor there. They're not enrolling patients.
Why?
Yeah, the doctor's busy. He's saving lives.
So, but who pay
The sponsor's paying.
the employees?
The sponsor told me to encourage them to recruit. And I could barely get a hold of the PI for 5 minutes.
I see. So what are you going to do?
He's saving lives, literally. He's a cancer doctor.
Well, that's the one in pancreas cancer, whatever?
Breast, he does breast.
Oh, okay.
He's literally saving lives.
Yeah.
So who am I to call and say, hey, you know, the alternative of not talking to me is saving somebody's life.
I know.
what am I going to do?
You might even think like you're losing your mind.
But these are real world problems you will have as a CRA. So you do your best to encourage them. Now he's busy, he's seeing 4 patients an hour, and he has these studies, and he has a coordinator doing most of the research, but he's seeing his patients, he thinks he's busy. He's signing lab results when they bring him. He looks at every single result, signs, but he doesn't know if it's research or just a regular lab result. They use the same lab.
Oh,
So
that one makes sense.
But that's how it happens.
Oh, really?
Yeah. At these busy clinics. We're going to have a doctor start here next month, psychiatrist, and he's going to start seeing patients. And, you know, but we're small. We're not as big as those guys in New York. But yeah, I mean, so it's up to you to communicate with the PI, because again, if the coordinator is telling the PI, hey, we need more patients for the study, the PI can say okay, and he can think it's important, but then now he's got a patient that's dying, and he forgot about that conversation already, right? And then if the coordinator keeps asking, they don't want to keep nagging him, they work for him, that leaves it up to you as an outsider to make him realize that, hey, you've got to start recruiting more. So that was my job last week, to do that. And we'll see if it works or it doesn't work. But communication is number one. But let's say they're not that busy, but they don't know what to do. Now you have a different problem. The first thing you got to discover is what's the problem. They're too busy, they don't have the patience. What is the problem? You know, you got to figure out that first, and then you can find solutions. Another strategy is to find out from your colleagues, other CRAs that have high enrolling sites, what are some things they're doing that are working that you can share with your site.
Oh, okay.
If you say that in the interview, that's very good. They like that.
Oh.
So I talked to my colleagues who have other busy sites, high enrolling sites, and I asked them what are their strategies, and I will share that with my PI, with my sites.
Okay.
That'd be an excellent answer. Deviations, we talked about that, right? Another thing, a protocol amendment can trigger one more thing. It could change the source documents. Because if let's say the protocol was amended so that there's now a blood draw at visit 3, and before there was not a blood draw at visit 3. So the old source doesn't have a place for a blood draw. So if the site's didn't change that source, they could theoretically not do it.
Okay.
That's another one. AEs, SAEs, you got any question about AEs, SAEs?
No.
Chris went over with that yesterday, right?
Yeah, I asked him.
What do you do if you discover a SAE that the site didn't report?
That's a deviation.
Yeah.
So I will talk to the PI, the study coordinator, and the staff, and try to find out what happened. It happened to whom and why.
And then have them do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then educate the site.
Yeah, have them do it. And then educate the site. So train. You would do the training document, right?
Right. And then
if that happened to me as a CRA, I would that day train the site on
the same day.
Yeah, that's serious. I would retrain the site on the SAE reporting. That day that I'm there, I would do it. It's that important. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I would stop what I'm doing when I discover that and bring out that log and get everyone who's there to retrain on that. That's important. Training log, yep. SAE.
So like the SAE and SUSAR.
Oh yeah.
And then there's another one too. Another name I saw somewhere.
There is SAE, serious adverse event.
Uh-huh.
There's SUSAR, which is serious, unexpected. I always get this one wrong. SUSAR.
Suspected
unexpected, serious
Serious.
adverse reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always
And then-
get that wrong.
And then there's another one I saw somewhere.
So this is good. I'm glad you brought this up. Okay. This will take like 10 minutes, maybe 5. But it's going to help you understand everything better. So hopefully you know what SAE is. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when a site experiences a SAE, okay, they will fill out within 24 hours of becoming aware. They fill out the initial report.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that goes to the sponsor, and that goes to the IRB.
Right.
Okay, that's no matter what site you are, that's your process.
Mm-hmm.
Then, once the SAE is resolved, or within 7 days, you send a follow-up report. Okay? SAE, still the same. It's a SAE initial report and a SAE follow-up report. Okay?
So, alright, so.
That goes to sponsor and IRB as well. Okay?
But that happened after you sent through the EDC or.
Yeah, but forget about EDC. But you do put this in the EDC too.
Right.
Yeah.
And then.
But this is on paper.
Okay.
Okay, so patient comes in today for a study
Mm-hmm.
and tells me that he had a heart attack and went to the hospital yesterday, but today they let him out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Well, now I know, 24 hours of me knowing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I file an initial report
Initial report.
to the sponsor
Okay.
and the IRB.
Alright.
Okay, on that report,
Mm-hmm.
you have the subject number, you have what happened, a brief description of the event,
Mm-hmm.
and then the severity. Only the PI can put the severity. They have a number like from 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Only the PI can do severity,
So.
and they have a causality section, which only the PI can do as well. How severe was it? And was it caused by study drug? Yes or no?
Okay.
And then how severe was it? Usually it's from 1 to 5. Only the PI can do this part, and the PI needs to sign this part. But the form itself, the coordinator needs to fill out. Okay?
Okay.
And then submit it to the sponsor and the IRB.
It feels so good to learn this thing.
Yeah, this is, I mean, you know all this stuff, but it's different when you are being asked scenarios.
Okay.
So that's the initial report, okay? The follow-up report, as soon as it's resolved,
Mm-hmm.
or 7 days later, if it's still not resolved.
Mm-hmm.
In this hypothetical case of a patient coming here today that had a heart attack yesterday, was hospitalized and was released today, and now he's coming here to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So now I know, on the same day, I know the follow-up as well. I know the outcome.
Okay.
He was discharged, that means he's okay. And now in the real world, if you have a heart attack, you're not going to be released in 1 day. But I'm just using it as an example.
Example.
Okay, it could be he choked on a chicken bone. Could be anything. Okay, choke on a chicken bone. Hospitalized. Obviously, it's not related to the drug,
Right.
but only the PI can put that.
So that one is what you call what?
Causality.
Okay. That's it related to the drugs?
Yeah, only the PI can answer yes or no to that. And severity, only the PI can answer that. But the report needs to be filled out immediately by the coordinator and sent to the sponsor and IRB. That's the initial report. The follow-up report, you fill it out, it's the same thing. Description, patient, severity, causality. And by the way, the causality can change from initial to follow-up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, initially the PI thought it was not related, but 7 days later he thinks actually it might be.
Oh,
Could change. So they ask causality again, they ask severity again, and they ask for a brief description of what happened and how it resolved. Okay, now this follow-up form also goes to the sponsor and IRB. Okay? So why, so that's a SAE, okay? Now SUSARs, these are reports that the IRB and sponsor keep a log of every single SAE that happened at every site. Okay. So basically, when they get these reports, when the sponsor gets these reports, they will combine them into a SUSAR report. It's like a 5-page description. It includes the initial and the follow-up report, and then the PI's severity, causality. They package that into, they put it on a log, and then they create a SUSAR report, and they send it to every single site participating in that study that's using that drug. So it could be other studies too. They send this SUSAR report to every single site across the world using this drug. Now why? Why do they do that?
I don't know.
That's a SUSAR. Okay. Now here's why. If this SAE was a rash that caused hospitalization, maybe a severe itching. Okay. If this happened here in Costa Mesa, okay, we do all this, we send it to the IRB and sponsor. Now the sponsor sends it to all those sites doing the study and any other study with this drug. A PI in, where are you from?
Tanzania.
A PI in Tanzania, okay, doing the study with this drug, gets this report and says, I noticed my patient yesterday had a similar symptom. Maybe he would have, if he didn't get that report, he may have just forgot about that. But now he's thinking more, hey, maybe I need to bring this patient back in for a follow-up, because this could be a SAE that I can prevent this person from ending up in the hospital. Maybe I need to withdraw this patient, right? That's why they do that. And that when a site gets a SUSAR, the PI has to sign, acknowledge each one that they read it. That's why they do that.
Okay.
So that's the difference between a SAE and a SUSAR. It's the same thing, but it's like a different form.
Oh, okay.
So if, so like a PI in Tanzania sees what happened in Costa Mesa last week, they send these fast too. That's why they want them so quick. Because they need to prepare the SUSAR for all the sites. So that they can possibly prevent another SAE from happening.
Okay.
Maybe that rash at the guy in Tanzania's office is just a AE. Right? It's not, didn't require hospitalization yet. So that doctor can now, it's up to the PI, but he can call the medical monitor and say, do you think I should withdraw this patient? And then they will decide if they should. They should stop the medication. Maybe they prevent a SAE. And the sponsor would prefer that too. Because SAEs, the more SAEs you get, the more the FDA says, hey, this is not safe. So if you could withdraw a patient prior to being an SAE, it's actually not bad for the sponsor. And it's good for the patient too. Who wants to be in the hospital when you don't have to be? Now, if that doctor in Tanzania got that report and didn't read it, just signed it and gave it back to his coordinator and his patient, and he documented previously AE rash, and a week later, patient ends up in the hospital, and now it's a SAE, and if a good monitor would be able to be a detective and see when he wrote the AE note, and see when he signed the SUSAR, and see when the SAE happened, and ask why he didn't withdraw that patient. And that's a big, I mean, that's not a deviation.
It's not?
No, it's just a lack of oversight.
Okay.
Lack of safety oversight. So these things can be serious. That's why they're taken, SAEs are taken very seriously. So that's the difference between, like, that's how the SAE and the SUSAR play.
Appreciate.
Now it's rarely that dramatic where the SUSAR will be able to affect, like a SAE will affect a patient on another site, but it can. But there's logs too. So as a CRA, you'll have a log of all the SUSARs.
Okay.
You'll have an Excel sheet, and you're going to go through the reg binder and make sure the PI signed every single one that came to them. Because remember, anytime an SAE happens anywhere in the world with that drug, every PI who's doing a study with that drug will get a SUSAR, and they have to acknowledge it. So
it happens a
support.
lot.
The SUSARs happen a lot, yeah.
Oh, really?
Especially for big studies, yeah.
Cancer, college.
Yeah, everything. Like in psych, you get a lot of suicide SAEs. And so it's related to drug. And in the report, the other doctor, like the doctor in Tanzania, will see what the doctor in Costa Mesa thought it was causal. And they respect their peers. So when they see it at their site, they're going to think, okay, well, it's happening in other places.
Right.
Probably this is the case with my patient too. Or probably not, if it's no. And everyone put no. But they can still say it is. That's why PIs need to be MDs for the most part.
They should.
But some are not. There's some cases where PIs are not MDs.
Like what?
I know a few that are psychologists, like PhD. But they have MD sub-I.
Okay. But still.
I know, yeah.
Still, you cannot be a PhD by study.
That's what I think too. I think you shouldn't. But there's no guidelines that say you can't. But these kind of things, like, obviously the PhD, those are not his patients, that's probably the sub-I's patients. So the PhD PI would talk to the sub-I.
So is it easy to get to sub-I's more than doctor?
Is it easier to become a sub-I? Or
No, like when you have you're trying to find a clinical. So like to find it, as you say, it's hard to find a doctor, to work with a doctor.
Oh, okay.
So is it easier to find a sub-I?
It's the same.
It's the same.
Yeah. It's less demanding to be a sub-I, so it's easier to, if you want to groom someone to be a PI, you groom them first as a sub-I. And if they like research, they can work their way to PI. It's less of a commitment on their part. But if you're a PI, it's all you.
You have to do it.
Yeah. But now you see how these things connect?
Yeah.
Chris could have told you that too, though. Didn't? He said save it for Dan?
No, we.
Oh, okay.
No, we talk about it.
Oh, good.
We talk, yeah.
Good.
We talk about it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Last thing, investigation of product temperature excursions.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do if you noticed an excursion when you went to the site as a monitor?
Well, the first thing I'll make sure I take all the medication which have been affected,
Mm-hmm.
and I will talk to the PA again.
Yep. So you would quarantine all the meds,
Right.
right?
Quarantine all the meds. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's called quarantine. And then, but what if the site didn't even know there was a temperature excursion, and they already gave 3 patients the affected IP?
I will talk to the medical monitor, and then we'll call the subjects,
Mm-hmm.
and
You wait for what the medical monitor says. Either he will
Right.
say, or she will say, that's okay.
Mhm.
It's still deviation,
right.
but it's okay. We built in a cushion, so we actually think 5 degrees more or less is okay. But for the site, it's still deviation.
Right.
But so that's one option. The other option is it's a deviation, and the medical monitor says no, not okay. Right. So now, those patients, the site has to call them, stop taking the meds, bring it back, early term visit,
Mm-hmm.
all the same concepts. Okay. And it's deviation, and is it IRB reportable?
Within 24 hours?
But it's not SAE.
No.
But is it reportable to the IRB? This deviation.
No.
It
No, but
is.
it's a deviation, yes.
Yeah, it's a
Because
deviation.
It's IP, so I think
It is
it's something.
affects patient
crucial.
safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it is IRB reportable. Yep. Anything else?
What is it CAPA?
Corrective and preventative action plan.
Yes.
Yeah, what do you know about this?
I don't.
What do you mean you don't? Kappa. So, this occurs when it's either something very serious that the site did one time, like a temperature excursion, that's very serious, or something small that they're repeatedly doing wrong, like using the wrong lab kits. Oh, by the way, using an expired lab kit is very bad,
Yes.
because that data can't be used. Okay, so I digress, but yeah, so either something that's very serious the site did, or like minor things that they keep doing. Like, I don't know, because you can almost say anything serious, but I guess using the wrong lab kit, all the tests are still getting done, but it's using the wrong lab kits
Okay.
for the visits.
Okay.
So those, if they keep doing that, okay, so that requires retraining, right? Obviously, retraining. Hopefully the site's retraining. Hopefully the PI is retraining the site, but if not, the CRA has to do it. But in addition, you want to make sure, how can this not happen again, right? So the site needs to write a corrective and preventative action plan. And it's up to them how they're going to write it. But the sponsor has to, usually if it gets to this point, the sponsor will pause enrollment for that site. Yeah, they'll say you can't enroll anymore, you're messing up our data. We're not going to close you, but we're going to put you on a hold indefinitely until we find that what your solution is acceptable. So the site needs to write a plan. It's like usually like 2 or 3 page outline of how they're going to prevent these things from occurring in the future. So it could be anything, like how are we going to prevent temperature excursions? We're going to change our thermometer, so now when there's an excursion, an alarm will text my phone, my coordinator's phone, and my PI's phone, so we know not to give out any more IP, right? Or if it's like a lab kit, it could be another staff member will double check each time a lab kit is pulled to make sure it's the right lab kit. It could be anything. It's up to the site. They have to put a plan that they can comply with.
Okay.
And then the sponsor has to approve it. Sponsor can say, no, we don't like this plan, write another one. Or, we like it, but it's not believable that you can comply. So how are you going to comply? Or write or modify it a little bit. Then they can accept it. If the sponsor accepts it, then they can consider the site open for screening again. So that's a CAPA. You as a CRA don't even really recommend CAPA, but based on your report, like your lead monitor and your project manager, they're supposed to read your reports, like every line. And if they're noticing common themes with your site, they're going to ask them to do a CAPA.
Oh, okay.
It's not really your decision as a CRA. You can recommend it in your notes. You can recommend, because it has a section additional comments. You can recommend, CRA recommends, and by the way, you'll learn this tomorrow when you monitor with me. When you write these reports, you always write CRA visited with PI, CRA did this, CRA did that. You never say I did, or I that. You don't say that. You say CRA met with site, CRA recommends, CRA recommends sponsor consider site doing a CAPA plan. You can recommend, but you can't tell the site to do a CAPA. Unless your project manager lets you. Like even CROs have their own SOPs. So if it's, CROs have SOPs too. Like how do you monitor? What are you allowed to say? What is your responsibility? What is the project manager's responsibility?
Of course, yeah.
There's SOP for everything.
Really?
I have SOP for my CRO too. But those are, I think they're the same page as their site, like the same, but it's very different. Like the material is not the same. Because the site SOPs are about how to operate a research clinic. CRO, they don't have patient interaction.
So it's for the...
It's just for the CRAs.
It's like a booklet for the...
Yeah, who reports to who, what do you do when there's a deviation, all these scenarios. What do you do if your CRA notices this?
So
who?
it's employee is kind of manual thing.
It's kind of like a manual, but more thorough because it's for your specific company policy on things. But yeah, for the most part, it's that. Yeah. So that's CAPA. Anything else?
Well, I'm here, right?
And we have tomorrow too. I mean, you're gonna learn a lot more tomorrow also.
Okay.
And you'll get access to this video